good. Kick is up, has the accuracy, and it is good. Jake Bates throwing right side, and it's going to be intercepted. Return past the 15, past the 20, out past the 30. Has space down the sideline. 40, 35, 30. And he is gone. A pick six for Houston. Snap good, hold good, kick up. And it is straight down the middle. Looking to throw, rolls out right. Throws end zone. Touchdown San Antonio. Cody Latimer alone in the end zone. They take a 1-point lead with 3 seconds left. 52-yarder, left hash for the win. Snap good, hold good, kick up, and it's drilled. Miami escapes week 1 with the win. Jason Sanders is looking to throw. Pass right side, wide open. Touchdown Drake London. Touchdown Drake London. Atlanta has tied this game and are an extra point away from taking the lead. Needing the 12-yard line. Handoff, Robinson left side. And going to be stuffed. A loss of 4, maybe 5 on the play. And with 50 seconds to go, the Chiefs have the ball. And most likely that does it. Ball on the 17.5-yard line. Looking to throw. Stepping up, throwing for the end zone. And caught. Touchdown Green Bay. Dontavian Wicks. 56 seconds to play. The Packers are within 3. 6:17 to play in overtime. Tua shotgun. Back to his left. 3 receivers to the right. Bunched up. Tua to throw. Has time. Plenty of time. Pass. End zone left side. Jonnu Smith. Touchdown Miami. They're gonna win. Let's go, baby. Here, back behind him. 3 receiving options to the left. Gonna send Smith in motion. Toss left side for Saquon Barkley. Good blocking and room to run. Pass midfield. Spinning his way. Pass to 35 to 30. 25, 20. 15, 10. 5. And the Eagles respond instantly. Saquon Barkley. Oh my. Making his presence felt. 1 play. 60 yards. 3rd and 9 from the 35. Mahomes looking to throw. Quick pass left side. Caught by Piron. Has room to run. First down and more. Down to about the 17. And he stays in bounds. That will do it. The Kansas City Chiefs have escaped the Bills and have punched their ticket. Hello, everybody, and welcome on in for a bittersweet impromptu Wednesday night stream. And it's bittersweet because for the past 6 seasons, Tua Tagovailoa has been the quarterback in Miami, and all that seems to be kind of ending. It was announced today around 10:30 a.m. that he will be benched, and it's Quinn Ewers going the rest of the way in Miami. And it's just, it feels weird. It's caused this day to have a bit of a weird feeling. In large part because, again, the football right behind me, that one there is a Tua signed football. It felt like when he was drafted that he really could have been something for this team, and he showed flashes throughout his tenure. Just in the end, ended up not being the case. His play has declined since the highs that were 2022 and 2023 when he was a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro player. And now we sit in kind of uncertainty and kind of an unknown future for Miami football. And it's a weird case to be in. So let's begin with the easy stuff. Quinn Ewers. Let's start with him just because that's kind of the now future. I'm excited to see what Quinn Ewers can do going forward. I'm excited to see kind of what he looks like with given full first team reps and kind of just against some defenses that aren't like mainly against Cincy's defense. If he struggles against Cincinnati's defense on Sunday, then it's gonna be like definitely need to go out and get someone for next season, different starter for next season. I do think with just how the upcoming QB draft class is at this very rough state of me having looked through it, there's a very non-zero chance that Quinn Ewers is the full-time starter next season. I wouldn't be fully opposed to that if he looks solid throughout these next 3 games. It's just that's the way it's gonna go. But also that's not what anyone here is really focusing on. It's Tua. It's talking about Tua. And the biggest thing is his contract. I mean, guaranteed a lot of money next season. $54 million is already off the books, Miami, not counting any dead cap that they're going to take by moving on from him, or even the fact that, if they keep him and by March 13th he's still a Dolphin, Miami's going to be owing him $3 million in 2027. So they definitely put themselves in a massive pickle, because you can't really move on from a contract like that and be the winners in that kind of trade, especially for someone of Tua's caliber. If he goes elsewhere, you never know how he could play. And it's kind of always been the main issue with Tua, is when he was getting that contract and after 2023, the main talking point was you kind of have to give it to him because you don't want him to be holding out and missing training camp, and because there wasn't really anyone better at the time. Now, obviously, it's clear that there probably would have been better options, but Miami's going to be in a weird spot with that. Current reports is that there's no, that this benching does not impact his status with the team for 2026, which is telling in one of two ways. I both ways is going to be the fact that they don't want him to get hurt in the final 3 weeks and have that impact his value in some way. And the other thing is, either they knew from very early on in this season that Tua was not going to be the guy next year, and this is just the final nail in the coffin, or it's that they still feel like, they are hand tied into him and that they don't want him to get hurt so he can play a full season next year. I'm hoping that it's more so we don't want him to get hurt because we want to be able to move on from him in the offseason and not have to deal with any injury settlements or not be able to trade him because he is hurt. But at the same time, it's a very weird situation. I may be saying very weird probably quite a bit in this. For starters, the best case scenario for Miami is to find a way to trade him one way or another. If you trade him pre-June 1st, it is only about a $45 million dead cap hit, which is still bad, but you've definitely have had quite a bit worse, or definitely could have had worse options. If it is a post-June 1st trade, then it comes in, it gets divided up into 2 years, which is a lot more easier to work with for some GMs. But also, it's only about $43 million in dead cap, so trading is definitely the way to go. You just can't get much value out of him because, he's not been playing great this season. He's on pace for career highs in interception percentage. He's getting career highs in interceptions, career lows, and a bunch of other stuff. He's been sacked the most of his career so far this season, and lowest career QBR. It's bittersweet. It's part of it is sad because the 2023 season, when Tua had his most success, it was my first year in college, so I have a lot of the memories of just in my college room just watching the games and having a great season. 2023 was a great season. It was the best season of Miami football in my lifetime. So it's one of those things where it's bittersweet. Again, I have a signed Tua football. A lot of Dolphins fans were ready to ride or die with him, and turns out that dying was the option. Didn't turn out that great. But it's a case of, Miami, ideally, you find a trade partner. There's not going to be a lot of options. Taking on that contract's not going to be something a lot of teams want to do, especially teams that are in need of a quarterback, when the next 2 QB draft classes are relatively solid. But if you can find a trade partner, you do save yourself a bit of dead cap hit, which is the big goal in all of this. His off the field antics, especially with the media, were not great, and that definitely played a factor in all of this. But at the end of the day, his play for the first 3 years of his career, you definitely saw signs there. It just, after he got the contract, he stopped working with Perform. I know Perform. I trained with them when in high school. They're great, and they did great with Tua. He stopped training with them, and he let the money get to his head, a few other things. Yeah, it's the off the field stuff was not great, but again, his play on the field, especially this season, not great. But it's also one of those things where if you're lying to yourself if you didn't think after 2023 that there was a potential there. Obviously, the potential didn't pan out, and that's why we are here. Get back on. There's 3 teams that I could realistically see Miami trade into it to, and even then, it won't be for a high value in large part, because of just the contract we're dealing with and the poor play. The kind of sneaky front runner to me is Atlanta, pairing him with Michael Penix, being a kind of a mentor there. And they're already dealing with one bad QB contract. I wouldn't be shocked if they want to deal with another. Las Vegas is another option, but again, I doubt it because no one's going to want to take on this contract. So trading him is not really an option, even though that's the best possible scenario. When it comes down to just the road that pretty much no Dolphin fan wants, which is Miami fans a way to keep Tua next year. Again, no one really wants this. I think it's better for both sides if they just part way. And I mean, yeah, I get that feeling of being disrespected by just the way he's been playing and what he's been saying in the media. Because again, it's like he let the money get to his head a bit. He took things for granted after getting that massive contract. I would have loved to see him work a bit harder, definitely, and stop in training with Perform either through his own reasons or through something with the team stuff. That's whatever. I don't know the full story there. But yeah, you can tell that after he got the contract, he kind of stopped caring to the full degree that we saw beforehand. He gained a ton of weight. He lost a ton of weight. It doesn't feel like was putting his full effort back out there. It's definitely embarrassing to an extent, but at the end of the day, it's something that happened. It's kind of a weird. It's kind of, again, reminds me a lot of Tannehill when he left, but obviously it can be on probably a different footing. But back to kind of what I want to say here, and that is Miami, they're in a bit of a pickle. One of the options is to keep him. I don't want him to do that. That's the road that very little Dolphin fans, I think, want to go on. If you do and you restructure his contract, you save about $30 million next year, which is good, but no, you need to move on from him. Yeah, he towards the end, he stopped caring. His play massively declined. It's just all of it. Just all of it. I doubt they properly clean house because I think this is McDaniel. I don't think McDaniel would have done this if there was the chance of him getting fired. I think this is the final fallback McDaniel had, which is we're gonna get off of Tua. McDaniel's gonna have a season with a quarterback that he wants in Quinn Ewers potentially or someone else, and then they're gonna go from there. The better scenario would be making it so that McDaniel is not allowed to draft a quarterback, and you have to go with either a free agent or Quinn Ewers for next season, and then you allow a new GM, new head coach, and the new GM pick the quarterback they both come to terms with, and not do what Chicago has done. But who knows with this front office? McDaniel is too well respected, both from Stephen Ross, but from the entire NFL, to not be given a chance with his own hand selected quarterback. And that's kind of the other bigger picture of all this is Tua kind of got saved a bit from McDaniel in 22 and 23. And I think Tua kind of took things for granted in terms of what he was being able to do in the offense. And McDaniel did as well. I think McDaniel has kind of shown to have learned from the fact that he can't depend on Tua all that much, and that's why Miami became a lot more of a ground-focused team over the course of their win streak heading into Pittsburgh. But I think McDaniel is definitely going to have a more fun challenge ahead of him in terms of building a team that's not centered around Tua's strengths. I do agree with the old logo back. I mean, there's a reason why it's a part of the background as much as it is. I love the old branding. The current reports about that is that it's not going. Miami's going to keep the same branding for next year, and that's kind of a whatever thing. But a good way to kind of signalize that this is a new era of Dolphins football we're entering, it would be changing the branding. But we'll see when that comes. At the end of the day, with all of this, again, this is going to be a relatively shorter stream than the other ones I do, which is the going live with games and all that. The other thing is just who's available for Miami next year. I'm focusing really outside of the draft for right now because I haven't really dived too much into the prospects all just yet. I'm going to do that once the season does properly end. But in terms of just free agents who are available, there's not a whole lot. I mean, just come into the Daniel Jones available, but you're not going to want to go after Daniel Jones. What's the full list? That's the wrong year. So, I mean, you're not going to want Russell Wilson. You're not going to want Daniel Jones. You're not going to want Joe Flacco. Jimmy Garoppolo, I would not be surprised if Miami goes out and signs Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason to be that, 1 year, maybe 2 year stopgap quarterback and that bridge quarterback because he's worked with McDaniel before. They've had success in the past before.
I think that Jimmy Garoppolo could be someone we see wearing the aqua and orange next year. I'm not sure how I would feel about it. All I know is that from my very brief look at this upcoming QB draft class, I'm not too high on a lot of guys, and Miami's not getting in the spot to really draft one of those guys I am high on. So if you want to have that idea of cleaning house and trying to have to rebuild the foundation of this team, which you do, over the past 10 years, Chris Grier has built a foundation of Dolphins football that can be best described as being a glass cannon. They when they're hot, they are hot and they play really high quality football, but they're constantly getting banged up. This is one of the healthier teams Miami has had over the course of Grier's tenure, counting this year, even though he was fired halfway through. But it's a case of you need to kind of rebuild the foundation of football, of Miami football. You do, because Miami football has constantly been, at least with the Grier tenure, has been through injuries. Ryan Tannehill was not great, but still healthy before Grier came in, and Grier shook up the offensive line, because that's when you had Bullygate and you had Richie Incognito leaving, you had Pouncey leaving, you had a ton of pieces leaving. Then he brings in Jesse Davis and all these other guys. It's a case of you need to rebuild the foundation. Yeah, I'm saying like it's a case of things you can't completely remove everyone, but you need to remove the core to an extent. It's a foundational issue with the way the team is built that came through Grier. So you have a new GM coming in that you can work from there. I know like every team deals with injuries, but Miami has always been a team to go after older veteran guys who have injury histories because they can get them on the cheaper end. Yeah, I know Tua's gone. Like that I'm expecting that. I'm hoping that Tua is gone with everything that's happening. It's a soft built team because of the foundation that has been built with Chris Grier. You get tougher with the new GM coming in, having to rebuild the culture and rebuild the foundation of this team. It starts with getting rid of Tua. It starts with getting rid of a bunch of other guys. Miami has quite a few free agents for next season, and it goes from there. There's the argument that, what happens with McDaniel. I'm not really worried about that just yet. But with the new GM coming in, the bottom line is he needs to have proper control of roster construction. You can't be a split. It can't really be split both ways. It needs to be the GM that has a clear identity for a team that is built tougher and built with more physicality, and you go from there and let him do his work. For as much as I like McDaniel, I'm not willing to give him more than one more year. Unless next year ends up being spectacular, McDaniel's leash for next season cannot be too long. Mainly because, again, he's part of the issue, but he can also be he's the one person from that front office that I can see the argument he's part of the solution as well. That's something that we won't find out till during the season next year. But the bottom line is there's maybe 5 players from this roster that should be cornerstone pieces. If you're willing, if Miami's able to maintain those, I think they're pretty set for the core of the team. But for the most part, most of these pieces need to be on the move, which it's going to be a multi-year process to do all of that. And it has to start this upcoming season. And it starts with Tua being gone. Now, of course, the draft prospects, I'm getting into. Yeah, I expect Tyreek Hill to be gone as well. Mainly because of what he's been tweeting today and all that, but also just because his contract's not great. And just everything about him has not been great in his tenure in Miami outside of the one great season, really 2 great seasons. But I expect Hill to be gone. I expect Tua to be gone. From the offensive side, really, there's really of the kind of the corners, the main before this season starter projections. It's Waddle, is Achane, is Aaron Brewer, the main 3 that I could see that I would realistically want to see back and be cornerstone pieces. Even then, I could see an argument against, Waddle and Brewer, but Achane is definitely someone I want to see extend in the offseason. And then with that, again, when do you get your quarterback? I don't think this upcoming draft class is when Miami's going to be getting their friend if they next face the franchise. Just because the team isn't built properly right now to bring in a rookie quarterback and maximize that window with the rookie contract. That's when I could see 2027 being the option. You have 2 off seasons, 2 free agency periods to build a team around a idealized starter, and then you get your guy and you give him the 4 years with a pretty solidly built team. Now, in that next year window, that's when you bring in like a Jimmy Garoppolo who knows McDaniel's system. It can be that one last chance and kind of go from there. There's definitely be a lot more information as we get to the off season, and the end of season press conferences happen and all that. But dude, I'm just very happy that I'm not the one making some of these decisions. It's going to be a very tough off season. Again, I could see this being a very similar off season to kind of where they just lead up to evaluating stuff. It's the biggest thing is who's going to be the new GM, and that's a decision Miami needs to make pretty soon into the offseason. Is who's that new GM, who's going to be coming in and really shaking out, because you want to be able to maximize the amount of time they have to evaluate this team and figure out what the direction they want, what's the direction to build the team in, and how do you build it in that direction. Now, there's the issues of with some of the restraints you're going to have on what the GM can do in the first year. Most likely, could based off what some of the reports are, it's going to be tough to find a new GM. But once you do, you need to make sure that it is the guy, that they have a clear idea in place, and they have a good way of executing it. Time will tell on that end. A lot of time will tell on a lot of what Miami's going to do, but a rebuild is definitely coming. And it could be a rebuild that's similar to Denver's, and that's what a lot of comparisons are being drawn to now with how Denver handled the Russell Wilson deal. And the fact that they've had a lot of success since then. I could see a similar thing happen in Miami. I could also see Miami trying that same approach and it not working out. I can also see a very desperation move from McDaniel, where there's all those, not really reports, but all the fans online being like, throwing out like jokingly the idea of Kyler Murray and Tua just swapping teams. And I could definitely see that. If McDaniel does get really desperate, I doubt that happens though. I would not want that to happen. But any way you can trade Tua, you do it, even if it's not for a lot. Again, his value is not going to be high. Same with Tyreek Hill. Your value is not going to be high, but you get something out of them, and you instantly make a statement in saying that this is not going to be the same team it was this year. That's the ideal direction to go in. And it's going to be a tough window of time. The other very, very out there idea is you trade Tyreek to Kansas City, was rumored to be on the table at this upcoming deadline, and you maybe, if you're lucky, get a 5th round pick out of it. Most likely, you'll get something later. The thing is, you gave up so much for Tyreek, and you're just not gonna get that same return out of it, which kind of sucks. But you kind of also expected that when you made the trade for him, because you never expected him to leave Miami. But it's gonna have to be the case at this point. Tua, again, value-wise, I'm not really sure what his full value is, because it's just a case of if you're gonna trade him, you're probably gonna need to retain some salary, one, which is not great, and two, if you're gonna want to get a decently valued pick, you're probably gonna have to give up a highly valued pick, which Miami can do. They have 3 third-round picks. So if they want to package Tua and a 3rd to get a 4th, maybe, but most likely that'll probably net you a 5th. Either way, it gets you something. But Miami having 3 third-round picks next year is going to play a factor to some degree into all. The other thing I'm just going to quickly mention is how Miami handled Matt Judon. I don't like how they handled it. I think he should have been traded at the deadline. I do like that he got waived and he's able to pick where he's going to be going, but still, I would have liked to see Matt Judon on the move, even if it gets you a 6. But it's an all-around situation where Miami's going to be treading water about how they handle this, and they're going to be burning a lot of bridges. And I wouldn't be shocked if we have a very similar situation to what happened after 2018. Enter that fire sale, and you build up the capital, and you kind of just build from there. 2019, the 2018-2019 fire sale was a pretty successful fire sale, all things considered, for Miami. Obviously, you didn't win the Super Bowl like you hoped out of all that, but it still net you quite a lot of quality moments and a lot of quality players. Not all of them still on the team, but still, you'll be happy with I'm so happy with how that moment went and how everything has built from there. Aside from just how all of this has now ended. I expect more, once the season ends, I expect it to take maybe a month for a lot of this to be figured out, which is going to be a very, very fun month of January for me, having to deal with all that, as well as the playoffs and everything, which we're going to be here for the ride for. It was just some very, very brief thoughts. I'm going to be collecting more as the season progresses. There's going to be as soon as the season ends, there's going to be an off-season preview video for Miami, kind of just discussing where I could see the team going to what direction I could see them going, where I would want them to go, kind of what pieces are on the table. For this just very brief moment, and just to recap, it's bittersweet to see the Tua era end, even if it is this offseason or not. It's going to be sooner rather than later. It's bittersweet. At the end of the day, yeah, it's something that has to have happened. You can tell based off how the season progressed that it was just not going to go well. And this is coming from someone who wasn't necessarily thrilled with the Tua pick in 2020, but I jumped on the train and I rode with it. And I appreciate what he did for Miami, especially 2022 and 2023. But now it's time to look forward and time to kind of figure out who the next guy is. The good news of all of this is Lenore Sellers is staying an extra season in college, so he can build some more talent there and get a little bit better. I think Lenore Sellers is still the guy that most Dolphins fans want, and still the guy I want. And him being in 2027 draft class is gonna make it a little bit easier for Miami to get him now, because they don't have to deal with a ton of teams looking to trade up and a ton of teams, in the current draft positions. So I think 2027 is probably going to be the year I would pick for Miami to get a quarterback, the year that I'm circling, which means that next season is going to be a pretty much a down year, same with 2019 was. And I also agree with that because of Miami's opponents next year. Miami has a very tough schedule next year, just based off of who the opponents are. Just based off who the opponents are and kind of what their status is this year. So Miami has to play the AFC West next year, to play the NFC North next year, and then they're gonna play most likely Cincy next year with the third place team of the AFC North. They're gonna play most likely Indianapolis next year, third place team of the AFC South, and then one of the Rams, Seahawks, or 49ers, the third place team in the NFC West. It's a tough schedule next year. Have that be the season where you take a bit of a down year. It won't hurt the team too much, because even if you have most of your current roster on the team next season, you still probably won't be playing all too great anyway. So might as well have it be just a fully commit to being a bad year, and kind of go from there. Where 2027, you have a bit of an easier schedule. Obviously, this is 2 years in advance, so it's hard to really predict right now. But 2027, when you play the NFC East and you play the AFC South, it's a bit more of a manageable schedule, just looking at all of those teams' 2-year outlooks. So tank next year, get your quarterback of the future, and again, most likely Lenore Sellers, maybe Arch Manning if he looks better next year in Texas. And ideally 2027, 2028 is when they can be back being competitive properly. Time will tell. I will be live tomorrow for Thursday Night Football between the Rams and Seahawks, as I go live with every single primetime game and a ton of other games throughout the season, every single Dolphins game as well. And live for every single primetime, every single Dolphins game, a ton of other games in between. I'll be live for every single playoff game as well. And then in the spring, when the UFL rolls around, I'll be live for all of those games as well. Hope to see you all there. Appreciate everyone tuning in for this very brief stream, just to give my thoughts on everything. This probably could have been a video, but I like it being live, because always good to see what other people think about it. I'm sure I'll get asked more questions tomorrow as well during that. Yeah, I appreciate everyone tuning in. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.